On one dark night in 1977, the small city of Dover, Massachusetts was invaded by a singular phenomena. 3 teenagers found themselves face to face with the unexplainable, leaving them questioning their eyes and their own realities. That phenomena would later take the name of their hometown as its moniker. This is the story of the Dover Demon.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Our Haunted Nostalgia, your monthly paranormal podcast, diving into cults, cryptids, and conspiracies. Today I have my friends Adam and Ace on board as we dive into the mystery of the Dover Demon. I'm your host, Elias Kier, Sabasinosis, and today we're going to start off with a little bit of discussion about cryptids. I'm sure everyone here knows at least one cryptid, right?
Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot.
The big ones that everybody usually
Jersey
knows.
Devil.
The
Loch Ness
Chupacabra.
Monster's the best.
The Loch Ness Monster. You'll be
Yes,
happy.
yes.
You'll be happy that we actually have our own Loch Ness Monster up here in the Northeast. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It's the Lake Erie Loch Ness Monster, and her name is Bessie.
Oh, I have heard of it. I was
I'm
just
not
about
going to
to
lie.
say
I thought
Bessie,
that was supposed to be a segue, and I thought you were going to be like, it's called the Dover Demon. It's
I
located in
have heard of
Massachusetts.
Bessie. Yeah,
Could,
it's
you,
funny.
could you imagine? The Dover Demon has nothing to do with demons. It's just a lake monster.
Bessie. Have people seen Bessie?
Apparently, people have seen,
I'm assuming
documented.
that's how it became a
Yeah,
cryptid.
cryptid. That's fair.
That's really, so you believe that cryptids are real? Is that
No.
what-
Well, the other thing is, think about how I don't know the actual sizes, how big Lake Erie is. I would believe there's a fucking lake
Yeah,
monster
Loch
in
Ness
there.
isn't that large.
Loch
is it?
Ness, I think it's like 9 feet deep at its deepest or something like that. Where
what
would
we
a fucking monster hide?
Underneath the hole that it's dug
Leading into the hollow
The troll
Earth.
market from Hellboy 2.
Yeah.
But as we've pointed out, it isn't uncommon for humans to share in a common mass delusion. Look at all of the people who have claimed to see things like angels in the sky, Bigfoot in the woods, Adam.
Jesus in my toast.
Jesus in my toast, ghost in my home, especially if the story or legend. What? You've never seen ghosts in your homes?
No, the Jesus in my toast.
No,
You've
he was-
never heard
he
of
was
that?
giving me- Wait, yeah, have you not seen?
I have no idea
Okay,
what you're talking
dude,
about.
I need to
Really?
find you a picture of this because
It's a common thing.
and
What, Jesus is showing up on toast?
yeah, like the
Or-
image
or-
of Jesus.
Yeah, people.
I'm gonna Google
thinking-
Jesus toast, and you're gonna see what
That's
we get
pretty
back.
impressive.
I can't believe you've never heard of that. That's like a
So,
common.
do you see
that would
Jesus?
get you back on.
Do you see Jesus in this image?
Do I just see it? I mean, you could say I see Charles Manson there.
I mean,
It's because you're not a believer.
you're not a believer, yeah. But how much
believer.
would you guess the Jesus toast sold for?
Well,
Wait, there's like one singular because I thought it
Well,
was
it happens multiple times, but like the
Right.
big one everybody knows. Guess how much that one sold for?
2 million.
Jesus Christ! Sorry,
20
Lord.
grand.
That's
20
exactly yes. I'd pay 2 million for
20
Jesus.
grand?
25 grand.
Let's go.
But like again, imagine being the random
Owner of
Midwest toast lover.
Yeah, but it's finite. Like, eventually
Exactly.
that toast is going to be
Mold
fine.
away unless you do that thing I see on TikTok
Epoxy.
and they epoxy it. Yeah. But much like Jesus in the toast, where I'm sure there are multiple billions of people who believe in that faith and would believe that that's actually Jesus in the toast. But when a story gets worldwide fame, the name usually becomes almost ubiquitous. Everybody knows of Bigfoot. Everybody knows of little gray aliens, right? But a common reaction to when one of those things pops up, like Bigfoot or the alien abductions of the early 20th century, is that suddenly everybody's experiencing it, right? It went from nobody having known what Bigfoot or little gray men are to everybody has a story of a friend who saw a UFO, saw Bigfoot, saw the Mothman. That's a bit of a weird one. Most people haven't seen him.
I do like the Mothman stories.
But the reason why I point this out is because in a world of mass media, it's becoming increasingly rarer and rarer to see cryptids pop up that don't suddenly become like seen across the planet, right? Remember like the clown sightings from
I was
2016?
going to mention them. Yeah, that was a big thing. It
But
came
those
and
were
went.
legitimate, right?
Those were
They're
legitimate.
both dressed as clowns.
No, yeah,
right?
but I'm using that as a sort of almost a mass hysteria where like one guy I think did it and it got traction on the internet. So what happened was thousands of other people went out and also did it. I'm saying much like Slender Man, the clown hysteria, or I'll use Little Gray Men as an example again, where it didn't exist before, but because of the world we live in now, it spread so quickly that it almost has no chance of being forgotten, like probably the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of folklore tales or cryptids in the past, right? But that is exactly why I think our story today is actually a little strange and might hold a little bit of credibility because it was seen a total of 3 times. Okay?
It's less than Bigfoot.
I mean, very much less than
Yeah.
Bigfoot. I could pull up a Bigfoot map right now and it's probably...
There's a Bigfoot map?
I'm sure. If I Google Bigfoot map right now, I'm sure it'll be covered in
Adam,
red.
you don't think that these freaking weirdos have been mapping out where
All
to
right.
see
I don't
Bigfoot?
frequent Bigfoot enthusiast
I just
forums.
Googled-
I should. I'd be very
I
interested.
just
in that.
Googled
I would be really.
Bigfoot map. There is a bigfootmap.com and they have a new map and a classic map. Which one would you like me to click on?
Well, classic.
All right.
Classic,
It's
of
like
course.
RuneScape Classic.
All
Let's see
right.
what-
So let's see. And it's called the
the
BMP.
BGM.
The BMP. And here is your Bigfoot map. And like I said,
That's a lot of big
that's
feet.
a lot of sightings.
Well,
I
if
don't
you're
know.
thinking that Bigfoot is a singular entity, it looks weird. But if you agree that
That is
Bigfoot
a
is part of a
species.
race that has been
Right.
it has not been documented or discovered either
Right.
intentionally.
By
because
the
there's-
government.
Yes, because there's some sort of conspiracy.
Like Hellboy's troll markets.
Right.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just
BPD.
they're particularly
BPRD.
intelligent and have developed an agrarian society that exists underneath the surface.
In the Hollow
Mole
Earth
men.
again.
Yeah.
So I'm going to point this out, and I'm going to sound like a crazy person when I say this to you guys, okay? There is a theory that Bigfoot or Bigfoots,
Big feet.
because I think the plural
Yeah,
is
it's feet.
Bigfoots.
It's feet.
Oh,
Is it
man.
really?
There's no way it's Bigfoots.
Oh, hey, I don't know.
I think it's
It's
Bigfoot.
Bigfoots.
Bigfoot.
Big feet.
Are interdimensional creatures
Oh, shut up.
that that phase into our reality from a reality of their own in order to scare children.
Now I think of them as like the Vortigons from Half-Life.
I don't.
They're the weird. They look like bigger
The
versions. You know the worms from Men in Black.
Yes.
I'm not going to do the accent. Don't worry. They look like a upscaled version of them with one eye. And,
Yeah, I remember them.
The
now.
worms that exist in the subway tunnels and eat the cars.
No,
The subway
not no.
cars?
The ones that play Twister.
The ones that
have
hang out in the
pot
coffee
bellies.
lounge.
I don't really remember them. Maybe you should.
If I
voice.
said one of their
Yes.
lines, let's play Twister.
Oh, I was really leaning in.
I made coffee.
I was really hoping you would do the voice. Okay, yeah. I know who you were talking about from the beginning.
I knew where you were leading.
Our story today begins in a sleepy town called Dover, Massachusetts, a town that sits 15 miles just outside of Boston. It's April 1977. Jimmy Carter is the president. Punk rock blasts across the radios for all youth to enjoy. Everyone has stupid hair, and teenagers are spending an exorbitant amount of time at local malls. Star Wars is a month away from throwing the UFO and alien conspiracies into the mainstream, basically. And it's going to be a cinematic event for the next 50 years until it dies a slow, painful death at the hands of Disney. The internet doesn't exist, so the only exposure anyone really has to paranormal stories in America right now are the occasional newspaper columns where they just tease people who say they've seen something like Bigfoot or the Chupacabra, or those strange paranormal magazines that used to pop up everywhere. It's spring vacation, so the children of Dover are spending their time outside, exploring the world in the short time, and in this short time between April 22nd and April 21st and April 22nd, the city is seemingly invaded by something that has yet to be seen since. Over the course of only 2 days and 25 hours, a new cryptid would enter America's pop cultural library and stay there ever since, having only been seen 3 times. The first sighting starts in what feels like a haunting scenario all of us probably remember. You know, cruising with your friends in a car, just blasting the radio and enjoying your time off from school. It's April 21st at 10:30 p.m. William Bill Barrett is driving his Volkswagen with his friends Mike Mazaka and Andy Brody. The boys drove with the moxie of youth, seeing as it was their spring break and they were just trying to enjoy themselves. Through the darkness of the night, William turned down Farm Street in Dover, Massachusetts. As his car cruised, the boys chattered about nothing until something caught Bill's attention. And it was just for a split second out of the corner of his eye that he saw something sat on top of the Farm Street wall, a crumbling wall of stones that sat unattended to on the side of the road. At first, what caught his eyes were large, orange, glowing eyes caught in his headlights. He thought it was a cat or a dog at first and almost paid it no mind until he gave it his full attention, and then his blood ran cold. He'd never seen anything like it. He's described it as being close to 4 feet tall, with a long, spindly body and limbs, fingers sprawled out and reaching across the stones to support its disproportionately sized form. Hairless, peach-covered skin covered the rest of its body and had the texture of wet sandpaper. But most unnervingly was its watermelon-shaped head that was larger than its torso, with a neck stick thin holding it up, and 2 large, bulbous, glassy, lidless eyes that glowed like orange marbles. And I'm gonna show you
I
guys.
want to see this disgusting creature.
I'm gonna show you guys the picture that Bill drew
I'm
when
just
he got
picturing
home.
Stimpy, but with Hey Arnold's head.
I was just gonna say, when you said watermelon, I don't know why I
What,
went to
you football
slice.
head?
No, I went to slice of watermelon. So I thought he looked like the main character of
Geometric.
Helix or Hey Arnold. It's more nobody knows what Helix is.
Yeah, I was gonna say no.
Google it. Yeah, I pictured Stimpy Hey Arnold. That's a good way to put it. I pictured that mixed with I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. the Anablob.
That is gross. I
he's
know
got the
exactly.
gross
What,
skin
yeah,
and- yeah.
and he's got like that large bulbous head and just
he's
like the eyes that aren't
mucusy.
eyes.
Yeah.
So this is what Bill drew the moment he got home, unsettled and unnerved. His father asked him what was going on. He drew this.
That looks, okay. I've actually seen this image before. I didn't know this was the.
Well, it's again a relatively popular cryptid for having only been seen
disgusting.
3 times.
That's not that's like
a gourd.
gourd. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. That's a gourd. Looks like a
Oh,
cave
it's the
painting.
birth of salad fingers too.
He does kind of look like salad fingers.
I'm not gonna lie.
Since you brought it up in the beginning, I was going to talk about Slender Man at some point in the cultural phenomenon.
I'm not gonna lie. No, this thing's shape and form in general, with the
gross.
long, unsettlingly uncanny proportions, do bring something like Slender Man into the mind. Just because the thing that made Slender Man it was a guy for all intents
Right.
and purposes. It's just the fact that when you looked at him, his arms hung way lower than they should, which is just freaky, and his legs held him way higher than he should, which is also just freaky.
Well, when you say he's just a guy, we do want to recognize that if you see Slender Man.
You do die.
Yeah, let's be real.
Right.
He's not just like a normal
Doesn't
guy
usually doesn't
hanging
have
out
a
at the-
face.
Yeah, but it's not like
he has
it-
no.
but
I
it-
know. What
yeah.
I understand now. what
It's
you mean.
humanesque but uncanny valley. That's
Like
the point
Freddy
of it.
Krueger is scary
Right.
to look at because he's fucking horrific to
He's
look
clearly
at.
deadly.
Yeah.
Too.
Slender Man is. Imagine if you just saw a dude in a business
Real
suit,
tall guy.
What about Freddy Krueger? The sweater,
the hat.
the hat.
You got to
It's the-
remember
it's the stripes.
Fedoras died in the
Gotcha.
1990s.
Yeah, he's gonna tip his hat at the ladies.
In total, the bizarre encounter only lasted a few seconds as the Volkswagen cruised down the road, with Bill distracted and his friends completely unaware of what he'd seen. Bill Barrett says, "I really flew after I saw that. I took the corner at 45, which is pretty fast. I said to my friends, 'Did you see that?' They said, 'Nah, describe it.' I did, and they go, 'Go back, go back!' And I said, 'No way, no way!' When you see something like that, you don't want to stick around to find out what it's going to do. They finally got me to go back, and Mike was leaning out the window going, 'Come on, creature!' And I was saying, 'Will you cut it out?' And Andy was saying, 'I want to see you!' But sadly, both of his friends went,
I wish they all would have died. Right there. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Those are the stories we don't hear,
This
right?
is how these motherfuckers were. I wish they all died.
Imagine how many Bigfoot sightings aren't on that map because 3
Because
teenagers
Bigfoot
turned around.
beat the fuck out of them.
Dude, Bigfoot comes over, smashes their head like a peanut shell.
Do you remember
I was gonna
those?
say he treats it like a chicken, the one that just bashed on the wall, just grabs him by the legs.
Do you guys remember those Bigfoot beef jerky commercials that used to be
Yes.
on TV?
Yeah, he would just attack the
remember
guy, yeah.
actually being unsettled from those because it would be like there's Bigfoot chilling, there's a guy teasing him with beef jerky, and it usually ends with Bigfoot mauling someone. And I'm like, oh, and this is back when I believed in Bigfoot. I mean, I totally believe in Bigfoot, but back when,
It's interesting.
Big feet.
but this is back when Bigfoot used to scare me. So I was legitimately worried that if I had beef jerky anywhere near the forest, I was going to be attacked by a wild Bigfoot.
See, these are the types of things where it's got to be exhausting.
What?
I'm sorry for you.
Oh, for me?
You can't even enjoy a freaking Slim Jim in the forest.
Without getting PTSD from
Jeez.
that episode of Billy and Mandy fucked him up.
Holy shit.
Billy and Mandy was one of those shows where
There was a Bigfoot attack.
Oh, there was?
They were having a picnic and Billy got kidnapped by Big. It was a non
I
sequitur.
remember this episode.
It's not the point of it. It's like complete non sequitur. He's just like, can you pass the such and such? And Bigfoot shows up and picks him up and goes, raggle, fraggle, takes him away.
You're
remember
unlocking
the
a core memory.
Tangelos?
No,
The
what's
name
it?
sounds familiar.
You don't remember that
No,
with
I
the
don't.
clowns collecting the Tangelos? They're going to destroy us all.
I remember Destroy Us All, the meme.
yes.
Yeah.
Destroy Us All.
One of
Yeah,
the few memories I have plenty of actual memories from Billy and Mandy, but the ones that stick with me were his son, the spider creature, where he's just like, I want you to love me, Dad.
Wasn't it voiced by David Cross?
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect.
David Cross is so great.
Yeah. If it wasn't him, it sounds a lot like.
But yeah, that was parodied in Aqua Teen Hunger Force 2, I think.
That was one of
never
those
watched
shows
much of it, but
where when I used to watch Adult Swim, when it felt like a not an illegal thing, but like I'm doing something bad.
Taboo.
Yeah. Aqua Team Hunger Force would come on, and its animation style was just so off-putting to childhood me that I remember I would have it on like almost unnervingly so. Like when you watch a scary movie because you want to be scared, I would have like Aqua Team Hunger Force.
It was unnerving.
Yeah, just to with the weird shit that was going on in there.
Master Shake was so funny in that show, though, let's be honest.
Was it Frylock, Master Shake,
Yeah,
and
Meatwad.
Meatwad, that's what it was. That intro, the song is now burned into my memory as well.
Good song. Remember when they had that bomb scare?
No.
I'll make it real quick so we can get back to topic. But in post 9/11 America, there was the Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and they did a guerrilla style marketing in New York City. I want to say 02, 03, maybe even 01. It was early 2000s is the point, post 9/11. And they did a bunch of like, it was guerrilla style marketing. So they would show up with like Meatwad and something saying like, it's going to be the bomb, and like a countdown and other things like that. And I mean, you know, we were in the height of, oh, fuck, it's a terrorist attack. And they got sued over it. And the funny thing is, I believe the creators of the show went on to hold a press conference about it, and they refused to answer any questions that weren't about their hair. And so they would say, like, why did you do this? Was this a bomb threat? Did you want to scare people? They go, that's not about my hair.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, do they have anything particularly interesting about their hair?
No, they were just like normal guys.
Got you.
But they were being their weird
purposefully
self.
strange.
And it was funny because there was one or two reporters that would play ball and would figure out ways to make legitimate questions while
asking about their hair.
Yeah. Like,
if your hair was there in 2001, what would it have done?
Was it harder to style your hair while worrying about the threats of the, you know, like stuff like that? They would answer those questions. They were 100% game for it. They were just fuckers.
That's
it was really
hilarious.
funny. But anyway, so Bill didn't get his ass beat, unfortunately, by the Dover.
By the Dover demon. Bill and his friends didn't get murdered by its long, spindly hands.
Though, to be fair, I mean, it is one of the least threatening cryptids I've seen. Like, it's up there with E.T., where, like, I would...
frumpy old alien out there.
I would squish its head.
Like you
What
saw.
the hell's wrong with you?
If it posed a threat, not unwarrantedly.
If it attacked you, you're saying.
Yeah.
So
but
you
it
just
go
looks
out
like,
there.
No, I wouldn't see it go, poor son of a bitch.
See, I'm thinking, what could it do with those fucking
Right.
limbs? Like it starts coming at you, it wraps its hands around you, and you're just like,
Well, the way you make it sound, it can barely function. It's disproportionate.
wait, why did you make it think I could? Okay, just the disproportions make you think
Well,
of that.
yeah, the way, like you said, it has a fucking watermelon head and a pencil-thin neck. That doesn't sound conducive
I
to
mean, it
like
exists. You can see that
No,
it
it doesn't. It's a fucking, it's a random dude scrawling.
But this is definitive proof.
Do you not see the cartoon?
This is a fucking photograph.
I was hanging out with Krusty the Clown the other day.
I just picture it's some poor naked drunk guy passed out on a wall.
With the cranial disease where he's got excess water in his head, and I'm talking about
Gigantic.
beating him to death with hammers. No, but again, the way you describe it, like it doesn't sound like a functional threat, unless it's like E.T. with or something with psychic abilities. Like, what's it gonna do?
like those
drag its head.
If
at
you guys
like,
watched Scavenger's Reign,
yes, that's a phenomenal.
the first
show.
episode where they introduced the psychic
Yeah,
things
the
that
frog
kind of
thing.
look like those.
Yeah. Have you seen?
I haven't watched that show.
Amazing show. You really.
What is it streaming on?
Netflix.
It's now on. Oh, is it now on Netflix? It was an HBO Max show. It's like 11 episodes.
Oh, I know. It has a really interesting aesthetic.
Cool
does it
art
not?
style.
Yeah.
It's one of the best ways to actually portray an alien planet as alien that doesn't just do human but blue.
And
It's
you'd
very
appreciate it
good.
because it has the Starfinder exoplanet-esque exploration of an alien planet where it's just scientists trying to figure something out.
11 episodes, unfortunately was canceled, but it kind of wraps up the story well enough. I highly recommend.
So was it 11 episodes, a full contiguous season? So there's an actual ending, or is it 11 episodes where they just stop?
It got the story it wanted to tell was done, and they left it open with sequel bait to follow another character in season 2. But since season 2 won't happen, you still got the conclusion to the natural story it wanted to tell.
I imagine it's
you
probably,
could tell more, but if not, oh well.
I imagine it's probably all like Castlevania season 2, where they wrapped up the Dracula arc, but left enough hanging threads that if it was popular enough, and they obviously did,
Anyway, the creature's not a threat.
Crazily enough, unlike most monster sightings, I should say, where like Bigfoot hits the mainstream and then you see a map being popped out of thousands of sightings across America, there was hardly a day between Bill's sighting and the next. Just 2 short hours later, near midnight, only a mile away, one 15-year-old boy named John Baxter was walking home from his girlfriend's house. By this point in the night, it was already pitch black. The streetlights were on, insects were chirping, and the spring night air was all around him. Half an hour into his walk home, John was alone on a long stretch of road when he saw a figure approaching him in the dark. At first, he thought it was his friend, M.G. Bouchard, who lived nearby, so he called out to him with no response.
Is that you?
An ugly fucking kid.
Name like that.
Well, no, I'm just saying, if you conflate that drawing with one of your friends, that guy's got to look like a weirdo.
There's my friend with a watermelon head and pencil
There's
thin
the
neck
human
and slimy
caricature I
skin.
call my best friend MG.
It looks like the little guy from Venture Bros. The quiz.
With the
quiz
robot
master.
hand. Yeah.
I've never known the delicate touch
Of a woman.
Yeah, he talks like this.
Yeah.
He began wondering who it was, seeing as nobody was responding to him. A local neighbor, a child, based on the size of its head, a deformed child. Not my words, his. They approached each other closer and closer until John couldn't bring himself to keep approaching a dark shadow in the middle of the night, and he called out, "Who is that?" To which the shadowed figure suddenly ran off the street and into a shallow wooded area.
I can say something.
Imagine, no mouth, just...
Oh yeah, I guess it doesn't, does it?
John made chase, actually worried in this instance that it might have been a deformed or handicapped child that he'd scared off, and he wanted to make sure that whoever it was ended up okay. So through the cluster of trees, over a shallow brook, and across a field, John chased it to a stop. That's when he finally got a proper look at what he'd been chasing across the gap of a gully while he caught his breath. It had paused, leaned against a tree with its feet molding across the rocks that it rested on. A large figure-8-shaped head that was the size of its body and long, thin limbs are what John saw, and he hardly knew what to think. And much like Bill, John also went about sketching the creature when he finally returned home. And you'll see a surprisingly similar drawing and shape to his artistic
This
flair.
looks like a racist caricature. I'm not gonna lie. This looks offensive. This looks wildly offensive. Yeah, the one on the right.
On his face too. Jeez.
Well, I like the previous kid was described as having a photographic memory and artistic ability, and
The last one wasn't a Picasso. I was gonna say, thank God all these people could draw. Because if let's say I saw it, it was hanging outside today, I'd go home, you'd get a stick figure at best.
I'm not gonna lie. I just looked ahead in the script, and just you wait for the third rendition of this creature.
It's if I saw
if you happen to be watching the visual version of this podcast on YouTube, these pictures will be coming on your screen when they are mentioned. I'm going to be quoting.
Well, how big is this fucking alien?
So people,
they said about 4 feet.
So
how big is the tree? He's as big
well,
as
it's
the
hard
tree.
to. Is that the top? Oh,
This
wow,
guy,
that is.
I'll tell you what.
Huge,
This guy
yeah.
either doesn't understand proportions, which means I mean,
or it was a twig.
it might have been a twig. Like, what is this? A shrub that he's holding on to?
Right, we need a
described as a
sense of
tree.
scale.
Yeah. Where is your sense of scale? The lighting. Where is the light coming from?
Because that does
It's
change.
an entirely black figure. What do you mean? Where's the light coming from?
That completely changes things, going from
Wait,
4
don't
feet
skip.
to 12.
Don't look at the next page.
I'm looking at the.
I have to see it fresh out of your eyes so you see it.
I'm just saying there's a big difference between that being 4 feet tall versus 12 feet tall.
Well, I will say, if
still
he
kill it.
chased this thing, it's got to be able to get up and go.
Yeah. I mean,
Pretty fit alien.
think about most creatures on all fours are usually faster than people. So, I mean, if it was running on all fours, maybe it does have that kind of like canine.
I don't know. I can
feline-like
run
speed.
all fours. I'm not.
Yeah, but you're gonna be slower on fours.
You ever go up the steps on all fours?
Only exclusively.
Dude, when you go up the steps on all fours, you feel like you're a freaking tyrant. You know what I'm saying?
You feel like you're going 30 miles an hour.
I either feel really good, or that's me trying to get out of the basement where the lights have to be turned off at the bottom, so
And you
I'm
have to
running out of
escape the
fucking
monster
forces.
chasing at you.
You ever try to go down the steps on all fours?
No, that seems
Exactly.
disastrous. Once you do that once,
And then you find
Go
out.
down the steps.
John is quoted as saying, "As I was looking really close, there I could see the eyes it was looking at me. I just stared for another few minutes. Then I got all these thoughts that maybe there was something really strange. Because nothing like this has ever happened to me before, so I didn't know what to think. So finally, I just thought that maybe it wasn't safe to be there. So I finally got the thought that maybe it wasn't safe as I thought it looked. Because the way it was staring at me, it just seemed like it was, I don't know. I got these feelings that it was just thinking to itself or waiting to spring or whatever, And so I backed up the bank kind of fast. My heart started beating really fast. And in a cold sweat, he picked up his pace, but not running so as to not startle it and have it chase him like we all assume ghosts or monsters chase after us.
Oh, just, I feel like this guy feels like he's sounding like he's falling in love with this alien.
Describing
Being
its
seduced.
large, bulbous eyes.
Chased him into the forest, and then when I stared at him glistening, breathing heavily from across the glade, I got all these feelings.
I didn't know what to think.
I didn't know how to process
You know
them.
what the worst part about Bigfoot potentially being real is?
Yeah,
is
people are
what
gonna be
portion
attracted
of the
to have-
population would want to hop on that.
Dude, and I'm not saying Bigfoot doesn't exist, but Bigfoot doesn't exist, and people still want to fuck
That's true.
Bigfoot.
You say that as if you think Bigfoot is listening to this podcast.
I don't want to offend any big feet listening to this.
Bigfoots.
Listen, I don't want to be rude to any of the big feets and or Bigfoots in the audience today. Please keep listening.
You are fuckable, despite what
Yes,
others may
please
say.
subscribe to the channel.
So you said there's only been 3 sightings?
There
of
were a
this?
total of 3 sightings, and the
Can
third.
well, hold on. Can I fathom a guess at why?
Why?
Because it's not cool. This thing is fucking hideous.
Okay, but you think grays are cool looking?
See, that's interesting you say that because I like to think of this as like for most of these things, I love to think of them as being a ridiculously well executed local prank where there are people that are like, listen,
drop bears.
yeah, we're literally never going to say we've done this ever. We're going to create an experience for people. We're going to do the thing. And then after that, we're going to destroy all evidence and never recognize it. And we're just going to let the myth grow. And it seems to me like maybe that's what this is. We found and made a particularly cool looking suit. We're going to spook some kids.
You got to remember. Oh, okay. So I was going to say, so I was of the thought that you meant the children were in on this. But you're thinking
No.
somebody outside was just
I think
freaking
it's
out a couple of
somebody else
kids.
that's just like, hey, let's
like
have some-
the crazy clown situation in 2016
Exactly
where they go out of their way
Well,
to scare.
at a certain point, it becomes like a copycat killer thing where there's people like, oh, there's a trend. I'm going to participate on the
But
bad
in this
side.
like
instance-
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes.
Exactly like Jeffrey Dahmer. The third and final time the Dover demon was ever seen was actually on the following day, April 22nd, by 18-year-old Will Tantor and his girlfriend, 15-year-old Abby Brabham.
That's a red flag.
This is 1970. Who fucking knows? Also, wait, hold on. Also, yeah, the last kid, John, was on his way home from at midnight from his long-standing girlfriend's house.
Who was he dating? The 24-year-old
Librarian.
Yeah, how old was his girlfriend?
It's actually here that you see John was a friend of Will's, what's his name? Abby's boyfriend, and had told him about his experience the previous night. Less than 12 hours later, Will and Abby had an experience of their own. It was near midnight, and Will was dropping off Abby at her home, driving down Springdale Avenue. Abby was the first to see it in the headlights of the car, crouched on all fours, a large head, no facial features except large green eyes, not orange, and a large head. She cried out, catching Will's attention, giving him only a briefing glance as they passed by the creature, driving by. It wasn't until after their experience that Will connected what he saw to the story that John had told him earlier. Abby gave an attempt at her own a sketch at the creature, which you can now turn the page and see what it looks like in her form.
I love it though. This is way cuter.
It's adorable in that way.
I'd
yeah.
get a merch of this thing. This thing's cute.
As if a llama fucked an alien.
It looks like something I'd see in a JRPG. This is like a Moogle meets like some type
Adventure Quest.
Yeah.
Well, what I think
Yeah,
it,
actually
what I think it looks like, it's like when you tell a child to draw something like a horse and they don't really know how perspective works, so they like all of the limbs.
If a child drew this as a horse, I'd get them evaluated. It's cute. Oh Jesus.
So the facts that we have of the Dover demon are that its name was given to it by the famed cryptozoologist Loren Coleman, who was the first on the scene to investigate it after the sightings and interviewed the teenagers as soon as he could.
He was called to this
Well, no, I think from what I read, the story had hit local
it broke
papers
and people were attracted
people
to
like
it. Okay.
Loren Coleman, who identifies as a cryptozoologist. Like, I like this stuff, and I'm not going to call myself the cryptozoologist. I just find this stuff interesting, right? He got in his car and drove to Dover in order to figure out what was going on. Loren Coleman determined that each of the children didn't seem to be lying and were generally shaken by the experience. All 3 sightings were seen over the course of 25 hours across 2 days. Each eyewitness independently described a similar-looking creature down to the large head, long limbs, glowing eyes, save Abby's green versus the other two's glowing orange eyes. Plotting each sighting on a map creates a straight line across 2 miles, which indicates potentially a migratory pattern or a path.
But could also the eye color just be informed by
The color of lights.
Yeah, I was gonna say the color
headlights.
of lights that are, because like if you flash a car headlight versus a flashlight at I don't know, like a skunk in the dark, they're gonna look
depending on the
different.
light. Or it could be a sexually dimorphic species, and the green are the males,
And the orange are the females, which could
so
probably-
they found a different demon.
Maybe that's why her picture looks so different than the other two.
Right. It's like peacocks. They look different, or Pikachus.
Okay, I guess, yeah.
There were no
Makes sense.
UFC. There were.
I think clearly my explanation is
It's
the most logical.
We got the freaking cryptid zoologist over here.
I mean, it's a thing in Pokemon. You don't have to.
There were no UFO sightings in the
You
area.
can either become a Nidorino or Nidorino.
Oh,
I get the reference, dude.
interesting. Yeah.
Or Pikachus, they have different
Tails.
divots in their tails.
I honestly never knew any of these
in
things.
the
This is
later
really interesting.
Pokemon games.
Nido
Torchic.
Queen and Nido King.
Yeah.
Right.
Torchic in Generation 3, the female had a butthole and the male didn't. I'm not even kidding about that. That's the one sexual dimorphic trait.
I do know that some of the Pokemon later on look different depending if it's male or female.
There were no UFO sightings during this time period in this area, so paranormal fans say that it couldn't have been an alien despite the way it might look. And after the initial 3 sightings, the Dover demon was literally never seen again. Whether it be hoaxed or not, nobody bothered to actually come up with a 4th or 5th or 1,000th potential sighting of this creature.
I think that is kind of more interesting though, because like with Bigfoot sightings, Bigfoot is cool.
Yeah, he
right?
is.
Like he's
Yeah.
a huge fucking creature. Slender Man's cool and spooky. This thing's goofy.
I love how Adam the entire time is just body shaming this poor demon.
It's
He's
This
like,
thing's fucking ugly. This thing's goofy
this
as
thing's
hell.
ugly. It couldn't possibly exist or run.
This
I bet
little
it,
dorky ass loser.
This nerd.
I bet it's,
Cryptid.
I bet it's
this cryptid
dumb.
a wedgie. No,
I
it's
know. Keep in mind, this guy said, if I saw this
I'd
on the
kill
side of
him.
the road, I would smash his head like a pumpkin.
This is like the Chad Bigfoot versus the Virgin
the
Dover
virgin
Demon.
Dover demon. But it's cool to see the Bigfoot, right? Because Bigfoot's cool because it's a big cool creature. This thing is like, first of all, if I told you I saw the Dover demon,
I would make fun of you.
right? See, exactly. If I told you, well, you'd
I
probably.
just think it's so funny to me that like the reason,
get this.
the only rationale for it being cool is that it's big. Because you're like, Bigfoot's cool. He's
We're gonna-
big. He's this big guy.
we're gonna find out.
He's a big
Ace,
guy.
He's
Ace,
cool
Ace.
as hell. He's big.
Ace, over the course of this podcast, as I bring more and more cryptids to the table, we're going to find out that Adam
A lot of them are big.
exclusively only likes Bigfoot, and he's the only cool
No,
cryptid.
I like other.
The only
cryptids.
reason is because he's big as hell. What do you think? So I'm going to ask you a few questions. You can tell me which one you prefer. Hummer versus Volkswagen Beetle.
How big's the Volkswagen?
Enough to fit 4 people.
Small. This is a small one.
Humming.
Okay, one more for you.
All right.
Shaquille O'Neal
was going to ask which one. Okay.
Wait,
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I almost didn't give you that clarification.
Is there a different Shaquille?
Shaquille O'Neal or the late Pee Wee Herman?
That's a tough one.
So he isn't size blind.
Pee Wee had an unfortunate incident that drove him from public spectacle that is driving me to Shaq's arms.
I knew it. You just prefer that you like big
Not
people.
a big fan of public masturbators. That's all I got to say.
You like big people.
There are a handful of rational attempts to explain what the teenagers might have seen that night, especially since they only saw it for a few moments with the brief flashes of light from their headlights. The two most often suggested are baby animals, namely a horsefowl or a baby moose, if you want to turn to see what they might look like. And, for lack of a better explanation, these creatures do have slightly elongated heads and long limbs compared to their young bodies, which I don't know what a baby horse was doing on a brick wall or what a baby moose was doing in the area, especially because the way people describe baby mooses, baby mice,
It's just moose.
Baby moose.
Moose is already plural.
Got you. The way people already describe baby moose is that if you saw one, you would know it was a baby moose. It would be the size of the Volkswagen that those teenagers were in, not the 3 to 4 foot tall creature that they did see. Another indigenous animal suggested as a possible example is a snowy owl, which seems...
I wish I would see one of those.
Well, which is slightly stranger. Yeah, they're cool. It's just slightly stranger, but then think about when an owl wants to make itself look larger than it lowers its head, spreads its wings, and then brings its is it pinion feathers to the ground, which could maybe look like the long dangling fingers of the Dover demon. Again, there's an example of an owl and why people might have mistaken it for that. Another claim is that it might have been an exotic pet, which would explain why the creature only was seen a handful of times. It either was captured by its owner or was taken out by a predator because it's not indigenous to this area. The slender loris has been suggested as a creature that it might be.
Now, this is a hot take because I know you were talking about how ugly and
No, I think lorises are cute.
They're adorable.
They are adorable.
But
I like, are they a marsupial? I like
Yes, they are.
I like marsupials.
No,
They're
and
cute.
that they have the iconic orange eyes, large head, long spindly limbs and
Eyes are
fingers.
so close together.
But
cute.
the one detractor of this is, can you guess how big a loris is?
It's like a hand size.
It's 7 inches.
They're really small.
I can't imagine seeing something 7 inches tall while I'm driving down the road to begin with, let alone mistaking it for potentially being 3 to 4 feet tall, let alone mistaking it to be the size of a tree like John did, where he just grew that thing in his mind.
Maybe it was closer than he realized.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
He was literally 6 inches away from it.
Right, the loris was right in front of his
right
face.
here.
It's so far away.
The tree was actually a single leaf coming out of a branch.
He wasn't running through a forest. He was running through an MC Escher art.
loris was-
He was running through an MC Escher art installation. He didn't have any sense of scale or distance.
The loris was perched on his nose, but it was very, very small.
which gave way.
That's no tree. That's just my pipe.
One
He's just smoking a corn cob pipe with the loris on it.
one of the more local on the more local and indigenous side of things, it's been suggested that what the teenagers saw might have been from Ojibwa or Cree folklore, an animal that goes by the name of Mengishi or Memegwasi, which are river trickster spirits from indigenous peoples lore. As described by nativelanguages.org, the Memegwisi are small river-dwelling water spirits. They are generally benign creatures, but sometimes blow canoes astray or steal things if they are not shown proper respect. In Ojibwe traditions, Memegwesi can only be seen by children and medicine people. So maybe these teenagers fall into the category of children.
Or medicine.
Or medicine people. To everybody who's listening, Adam just gestured a little bit of reefer to his lips. In others, they appear to anybody, And it's often said that they help humans who give them tobacco or other gifts. A little bit of that reefer. Most often than not, Mimigwisi are described as being child-sized and hairy with a large head, a strange voice that sounds like the whine of a dragonfly, which I don't know what that.
Terrifying.
I don't know what that means.
You've never heard think kind of like an insect buzzing.
Like zzz.
Yeah.
So
the dragonflies kind of have you'd know it. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie,
but
I can't imagine speaking with that kind of cadence to your voice.
Yeah, I mean it's just like a buzz. Think about any time like an anthropomorphic buzzing insect in any like old cartoon.
You explaining that? Yeah, you explaining that suddenly makes complete sense in my head.
The decadent deceiver.
Decadent deceiver. In Korean, the Korean Innu describe them as having narrow faces, and some Menominee storytellers have said that they have no noses. So, for all intents and purposes, yeah, I don't know.
All the others have such descriptions, and they don't got
noses. But for all intents and purposes, like the description of this river-dwelling Native American spirit lines up with what the children saw. Why? I mean, John saw it near a gully after passing a brook, but the others just kind of saw it on the side of the road. So, I mean, even if it was this trickster spirit, then it doesn't really even
trying to blow their canoe astray.
I mean, the car, canoe, who knows? Yeah, vehicle. Maybe it's just vehicles in general. And now I'm imagining the Dover Demon taking down airplanes.
Well, cars are heavier than canoes, so it was trying to blow it astray,
and it just wasn't working.
Nothing. It was like
That's why I was exhausted on the wall.
Yeah, because it was like the big bad wolf with the pig's house.
This is going back to Adam having no faith in this creature whatsoever, just assuming that it can't do what magical powers it could.
Yeah, you said it didn't sound magical. Yeah. It was blowing the canoes away like the big bad wolf.
Yeah, and you've only been seen 3 times. Come on.
And it can't shake the car or the guy.
You ran away from a 15-year-old like a fucking dork. Come on.
Alternatively, the children could have just straight up seen an alien, like the little gray people that we all know, especially because whatever this thing lines up so well with very popular pop culture renditions of aliens at the time in comic books, movies, and cartoons. People have suggested that maybe it had crashed or was stuck on Earth, and the reason it was only seen 3 times is because it figured out a way to fix its spaceship and go home. Or, much like Ace over here suggested a little bit earlier, it could have been a straight up hoax, either orchestrated by a handful of children who were just trying to find time to fill their spring break, or something more coordinated to freak out local residents, or maybe even go out of their way to create a local cryptid for the city, much like the Mothman of Point Pleasant or Nessie for Loch Ness. That's in Scotland, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Loch Ness in Scotland, where like these things have a monetary value behind them, right? Like they bring people in.
Tourist attraction.
Yeah, to buy memorabilia.
Roswell.
Yeah. And in looking for research for the Dover Demon, I even came across a store that had a little bit of research done on it, but the store was exclusively selling Dover Demon keychains. So like memorabilia. It's only seen 3 times, but it's made enough of an impact that it has some kind of a monetary value behind it to begin with.
Well, I'm sure in the relatively pulseless tourist economy of Dover, Massachusetts,
a population of about 4,000.
Yeah, I'm sure that something like a cryptid would probably really move the needle for them. It's probably not. I don't know. Maybe
it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Dover's probably an awesome place, but I don't suspect there's that many people outside of the immediate region. Like, let's go hang out in Dover.
I'm gonna Google what the population of Point Pleasant is, where Mothman was seen.
Can you check Airbnbs in Dover for me too?
What the prices? I want to go Dover hunting.
I'm going Dover diving, as they say.
So, yeah, well, let's put it into perspective. Point Pleasant, the home of the Mothman, probably North America's, aside from Bigfoot, most popular cryptid sighting, only has a population as of 2023 of 3,900.
Oh, wow.
And I've heard this at least from YouTube videos where investigators go to Dover, West Virginia, where that single event that took place over the course of a handful of months back in, I think, the 80s or 70s, brings in literal millions to that city over the course of the year. I've seen Mothman-themed pizzas where they have Mothman made out of ingredients on top of the pizza, Mothman cookies, Mothman posters. They have a Mothman statue that people drive and then find an Airbnb in the area to take a picture with. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that this could have just been a couple of, who even knows, like marketing department guys for the city going out of their way to try to make something like this for the city
honestly,
itself.
Injecting a little bit of like weird mysticism and whimsy is
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, why not?
Well, like we already
Not
did.
hurting. It didn't hurt anyone.
Yeah, no, and we in our own.
Out.
As far as we know, there's no canoe sighting.
Well, the ones who saw it and didn't report back.
True.
That's true.
There could have been 1,000 sightings.
We need to check the kayak registrations the year before
The-
and the year after.
and the
to see
missing
how-
persons record.
Yes.
Remove
before and
the-
after the
yeah.
Dover Demon. Well, we talked about it in our first ever podcast where we have our own local stomping ground, Constitution Drive, which you have a shirt of. Like somebody made money off of printing Constitution Drive on a T-shirt, and it's like every city has something small like that they can kind of make a little bit of money off of or be known for, whether it be a haunted hospital, a haunted road, or a local cryptid.
Or if you get lucky enough, you can upgrade to having a real serial murderer be in your town. And then
That
you
brings
can
in the
point
big
that out.
bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do anybody ever frequent like John Wayne Gacy or Charles Manson's like hometown?
No, but they get plenty of fan mail, so I'm
Well, I
sure.
know the individual does, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, is there any tourism off of?
That's not something I've noticed.
Unfortunately, I would imagine there probably is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not as much as Roswell or Mothman.
Oh yeah, Roswell is a great example of a place
Because
leeching
that's like
off
a
of
little
an event.
desert town in the middle of fucking. It's like where Courage the Cowardly Dog lives, right? Yeah.
And they have Roswell themed to everything, and I'm sure it helps
All alien
the
themed.
4,000 people that live there tremendously. Even though, after saying all of that, to this day, Bill says he swears on a stack of Bibles that whatever he saw that day was there. He wishes he hadn't seen it because he's
I know this is a little late, but it would be really funny if people treated serial killers the same way we
the
treat
cryptids.
I saw Charles Manson in the woods. That's impossible. Charles Manson's not real.
I swear the Zodiac Killer killed 2 people right over
And I
there.
guess, yeah, you know what? I guess
The
with some
cops show
serial
up.
killers, it is a little cryptidy. Because there are like the copycats and the clown thing.
See, I'm not too big a fan of true crime, so we're probably not
think it's
going
interesting.
to not going to cover it too much on this podcast. But the Zodiac Killer is one of those where, like, the killings were more just like he just shot a couple of people a couple of times versus someone like Dahmer, where it's like actually horrific to what he did.
Did you ever get into any
They were
analog?
all pretty.
No, serial killers as a whole are disgusting.
But there's a big difference between just shooting somebody versus like horrible torture and
Yeah.
other
Well,
shit.
the Zodiac Killer had some pretty gruesome murders as well, though.
What-
Like the murders at the
The couple he stabbed.
the lake was pretty fucked. But
Oh, he did stabbings?
But again, still, that was stabbing versus
Eating
Drilling
maiming
holes
and
into
a
people's-
long, drawn out, horrible,
Yeah,
yada yada.
that's a good point.
But have you ever gotten into any analog horror series?
I have, and they are equally as freaky as true crime to me. Just because there's okay, there's something to be scared with serial killers, right? Like serial and spree killers
Right.
exist in our real
real,
world.
yeah.
Cryptids, and I'm not saying cryptids don't exist. I'm not going to be afraid going into the woods
You
of
were
Dover.
a Bigfoot.
Yeah, as a 6-year-old.
with beef jerky, you
Yeah.
bastard, and he told you that in confidence.
That and all 50 of our listeners. But I completely lost my train of thought.
The unrealism of.
But then there's like a weird haunting realism to like the analog horror where there's like if I put in a VHS, right, and it had anything similar to the kind of analog horror I've seen on YouTube, I would turn it off immediately because I would assume the actual ring girl was going to crawl out of my television.
Because analog horror is more of a storytelling medium. I never really got into it too much, just because it's a time dedication I don't really care about. The only one I'm vaguely familiar with is Marble Hornets and Urban Spook.
Have you ever listened to Local 51? I believe it's called.
No, I also I'm aware of Night Vale, though that's not
That's
not analog
yeah.
horror, but I'm just saying
That's
it's
more on the
similar
cheek.
like
Yeah.
that. It's a time investment that I just don't have. But I know they vary from somebody documenting like a cryptid hunt versus something documenting a serial killer. Maybe that serial killer turns out to be of the supernatural variety. I'm just saying that there's like a wide variety in that where people clearly do it for entertainment and it's got content creators and people are interested enough.
Yeah, and I mean those content creators probably make a little bit of money on, maybe not even on the side. Some of these I've seen have millions of views on YouTube.
The only one the one I'm most familiar with, which is still to say not familiar at all, is Urban Spook, and his is clearly a platform for, like, he merchandised his stuff before it went the big hook of his is that it's documenting a serial killer who draws really fucked up dark paintings, like surreal versions of his killings. And as his series was going live, he merchandised the paintings, and they're really good paintings, really dark and fucked up, obviously. But his was a vehicle. Like, it was very clear from step one, like, I'm telling a story to sell merch. Not saying that's a bad thing. It's good merch, but like it was interesting.
Yeah, but it went out of its way to try to draw a crowd. It wasn't trying to masquerade.
And it was interesting. I mean, if you're into analog horror, it's one of the better ones from what I've heard.
But to this day, the Dover Demon hasn't been seen again. It was just those 3 quick sightings back in the 1970s. Regardless, it still managed to make its way into the analogs of North American cryptid lore, becoming a piece of shared cultural nostalgia for not only the people of Dover, but of the Northeast. This is one of the few cryptids that, when you look up cryptid maps, it's on there along with Bigfoot and Bessie and the Mothman, even though it's nowhere near as well known or popular. Some people come across it through the internet, whether they be listening to a podcast like this, or some people actually come across versions of it in video games and movies because it has been adapted to a handful here and there, usually not called the Dover Demon, but its visage and its shape. But that's all I had to go on the Dover Demon because, again, it only had about 25 hours worth of research to look into. All in all, I'm not entirely sure what this could have been because, again, if you're taking the kids' words for face value, they were spooked by something. They saw something. They don't know what it was. They couldn't really describe it. We got a vague picture of what it might have been. God knows, I have no clue if it was a baby fowl, one of the fucking lorises, or hell, just a guy in a suit. What do you guys think it could have potentially been, other than a hoax, I'll say?
Native American spirit.
Native American spirit. This is your closest one for you.
Yeah, it's just weak and can't blow canoes.
It can't pull.
An asthmatic spirit, or I think it's a really good,
Hoax.
well executed prank.
Marketing stunt.
I can't really think of a good example of what it might have been otherwise. Maybe it could have been like a rabid coyote.
Well,
Something like that had already been a little beat up or something and was on its last legs, but I don't know what
Speaking
else.
of like North American cryptids, the chupacabra is one of the other massive ones, and that is quite literally, more often than not, just a rabid dog, wolf, or coyote that somebody sees and just goes, I don't know what that is. It's got to be a cryptid. It's got to be a monster of some kind. Can't possibly be an animal. This could have very well been a snowy owl or a baby doe or something like that, or a baby horse. And these kids are 15 to 18 years old. They live in the middle of a city. I mean, it seems like a relatively small city. I have never seen a baby horse in real life. If I saw it in the dark for 3 seconds as my car drove by it, I might freak out and think it was something that I'd never seen in pictures of or in real life either. But again, it's completely up to what these teenagers say because we only have those 3 settings to go off of.
Thank you very much, the wonderful people of Dover, for regaling us.
For giving us this little story to talk about. It might not be as big as Mothman, but at least it's on the same lists as it. Thanks for giving us a listen here at Our Haunted Nostalgia. If you have any stories or of your own or ones that you'd like us to investigate, you can email us at ourhauntednostalgia@gmail.com. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, or follow us and leave us a 5-star rating if you're listening to on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We'll be back here next month for another creepy story to tell you. What that'll be, you'll have to find out. But I'll give you a hint. It starts with 411.